But you see the basic idea here. This is an early implementation of something called lozenge camouflage. And again, it's quite vorticist, it's quite cubist, and the deal is you have a bunch of differently colored blocks which are separated by like thick black lines. And I mean, it does break up a shape. Like we're getting to the basics here. We're getting to like disruption. We're getting to counter shading as well.
Yeah,
Um,
we're getting to what we know today.
yes, I mean the
Yes.
principles haven't really changed. Next
Mhm.
slide, please. Um,
I
and
love these.
yeah, so you can see that this disseminates throughout. It disseminates outwards and downwards from specialists trying to like do this stuff for like special cases out to more generalized stuff. And like from July 1918, this is when the German military are being ordered to like paint helmets in this kind of lozenge camouflage. You just pick some like kind of neutral colors and you do like blocks blotches separated by lines, and you have a mix of light and dark colors, and it breaks up your silhouette, and that becomes standard. It's still something you individually have to do by hand, but it's sort of like standard procedure, certainly. Um,
These always remind me of like tortoise shells or turtle shells.
yeah,
Getting denied entry into the turtle club in my German helmet. Am I not turtly enough for the turtle club?
This is reminding me. You know what this is reminding me of is the regulations surrounding building 5-over-1s in most of America.
oh
You got to
yeah.
make them blocky. You got to break up the box. You got to use a bunch of materials. They're just doing old timey camouflage, so
Yeah,
you don't notice there's a huge building there somehow.
absolutely, absolutely. To be fair, the Germans started doing this from July of 1918, so you can kind of tell how much that helped them, given that the war ended in November.
Yeah, a little
Um,
late to the bus on that one, I
Yeah.
I mean,
think.
this is the thing.
Oops.
Like, so much of the so much of European history, particularly of leading up to the Second World War, can be understood by the last few months of the first.
Oh yeah.
This is when they like really invent like Hutier tactics that are going to be the basis of a lot of like subsequent maneuver warfare. But also, it's where like you have a bunch of like disgruntled, soon to become fascists. It's not for nothing that one
Yeah,
of the
like most of World War One is doesn't look very much like World War Two, except for those last few months when you really get the preview of what World War Two is going to look like.
it's also really weird when you look at like war memorials and stuff and you see people who got killed with like 2 months left to go of the war, and you're like, oh, this is someone who like potentially survived like years and years of trench warfare and was very, very adapted to that. And then the second it turns into maneuver warfare, someone like shoots his head off. um and it's again all of this has a
It's
political resonance,
only
right?
3 days from retirement.
Eh.
This
Mendoza.
also in particular, like I mentioned Houthi tactics. I mentioned like the guys who did those things, the guys who did the kind of raids, like trench raids and maneuver warfare and stuff, were called stormtroopers. Like storm as in assault. It's not for nothing that an early like fascist like Freikorps was called the Stahlhelm, the steel helmet. In Italy, all of these guys were like on the same basis that like if you weren't in these kinds of units, you didn't fight. Like it was fully a belief amongst these people that like they were the only ones who had like had a war. And then that leads obviously to the kind of like like myths of betrayal and all
The
of this.
stab in the back,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
and then leading to course to, as it always does, to rampant anti-Semitism.
Yeah. So like all of this stuff has a like a strong political valence, and yeah, camouflage is a part of that. If we go to the next slide, it'll talk about the fun stuff though, which is
Oh, hell yeah.
boat.
Love this shit.
Boat.
Boat.
I could have put
Boat.
in about a million slides of this, and I'm kind of regretting that I didn't. So the problem with ships, right, is that they're very difficult to hide completely. Particularly because at this point, you know, you have like smokestacks, you have like boilers, they're giving off a shitload of smoke that's visible from over the horizon, and also it's a big object.
It's very large.
Yeah.
It's like these things are not easy to hide, and at a certain point, you have the idea. Well, why hide it, right? Like, what you should do instead is make it difficult to like shoot at, to obtain a firing solution, because you have to like, whether it's with guns or with torpedoes, you need a sort of early mechanical computer to be able to calculate like the thing is this far away, moving in this direction at this speed. Where do you aim to hit the fucking thing? And so if you can mislead your enemy as to what speed the ship is going at, what direction it's facing in, all the better. And that leads you to this invention of dazzle camouflage, of which this is a beautiful example.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And this is what so much of modern warfare is really just being is about buying that little bit of extra time so you can shoot first or make the guy miss his first shot, whether it's a guy shooting at a guy or a ship shooting at a ship or a plane shooting a plane. It's about getting that little bit of extra time to basically get one off before him or make his shot miss.
Yeah, and this is a British invention that was then like very quickly adopted by the US as well, and it's a fantastic time for artists because you want to make each ship unique if you can. You have this huge canvas, and you were just saying to an artist, "Fucking do some weird shit to
Do some
this."
weird shit to this, yeah.
Get real weird with it. Just get some real crazy. There's some great pictures of known murderous ship, the RMS Olympic in Dazzle camouflage. The
Yeah.
Titanic's less ill-fated sister. Like they did this not only to warships, but they did it to transport ships that were carrying people and supplies across the ocean as well. They did it to a lot of shit.
Yeah, and this is like explicitly founded on the basis of like uh fucking animals camouflage themselves. Ships should do likewise. And it's sort of successful. I mean, if nothing else, it's impactful, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it
And
sticks with us that we're talking about it in a podcast like 110 years later.
yes,
It reminds me of that the art book that was released for Jodorowsky's version of Dune.
Oh
You
yeah.
know? Yeah, they got that's some of the same like coloring.
also, but both in the First World War and in the Second, this is largely work that's done by women. Like the history of this mostly talks about like men, and a lot of the like scale modeling and testing and stuff was done by women. This is like again because it's stuff that like for the most part is a kind of like marginalized activity. It's almost embarrassing to your career Navy officer because it's not like it's not quite cricket, to be painting your ship in like various gay colors. Um,
You want to be painting the side of my ship. It's just not on. It's just not on. You have to have Jay be able to see it, or otherwise it's just not sporting now, is
I
it?
mean, it would be a tragedy if there was homosexuality in the Navy.
I'm only just now hearing about this. Need time to process.
Speaking of homosexuality, may I have the next
boy.
slide, please? So-
Pink.
Pink.
Yeah, I put in a few examples of pink here just because I was in a mood for it. So yeah, as much as it's become important to hide stuff from aircraft, it's like aircraft are not really hiding from the ground or from each other during the First World War for a long time, even when they're told to. Like because again, this like individual prestige thing, the stuff that leads you to the gold helmets back in the day, leads pilots to this kind of knights of the sky stuff.
Well, it's like so. How many of these guys start out as cavalry officers, and how many
Yeah.
of them were aristos?
Absolutely.
Hey, come on, guys! I'm the Red Baron. It's supposed to be red.
Yeah, and like a lot of these guys get fucking killed on that basis. But like, for instance, you can see this this German plane here that the orders are paint it with this like sort of blotchy lozenge camouflage, and clearly what they've done is gone, okay, cool. Nothing about painting the rest of it in any particular color, so I'm going to do it in pink then, in like bright
Yeah.
pink. And so much of it is like recognizing individual pilots through individual or squadron liveries, and it's something that like only really changes at the very end of the war and then afterwards, because pilots are gay, and I say this approvingly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how in Blackadder we never actually saw Lord Flashheart's plane. Imagining him flying
Oh,
around the
God.
pink planes, it's like, yeah, my plane's pink, not because I'm a puff, because it attracts the birds. Woof.
If we go to the next slide, I have an example of the kind of interwar thing.
Oh, this is sick.
This is it's one of my favorite colors. This is Nevo, Night Invisible Varnish Orphanedness, because it was invented
Sick acronym too.
in orphanedness. So the idea is that like if you're trying to fly a plane at night and hide it at night, black isn't the most effective because it's like it's too dark. You can still see it. And so the idea is that you have this kind of grayish kind of moonlit color. And
Looks
that
like a very, very, very dark green almost.
yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
does. That's what my eyes read it as at first too. But now when I look at it harder, I see what November means. It kind of it's already tricking the eye.
Yeah, and they tried this interwar. I included as a detail just that, like, eventually they finally subdued the kind of like rampant homosexuality of fighter pilots,
Boo.
and made
Bring it
them.
back. That's what I'm return about. Make the fighter pilots more gay again.
Ma-
Forget this focus on the family shit in the
Yeah.
US Air Force. Get this shit back.
They made them paint their shit normal colors. This didn't end up like sticking around. It wasn't particularly effective as far as anyone could tell. And by the Second World War, generally you're painting planes in like a much more like kind of land camouflage kind of look. But
It's interesting that the only way they could get rid of the homosexuality was by making every single United States Air Force pilot just an insane evangelical.
yeah. Next slide, please.